Welcome to Naked Spirituality, a video blog series of sacred attention therapy in the Center for Human Awakening. My name is Rob Meager. For more information about sacred attention therapy, the Center for Human Awakening, and our video blog series, please visit our website at www.centerforhumanawakening.com, and center is spelled C-E-N-T-E-R. Our guest today is a dear soul friend of Sacred Attention Therapy Study Group and the Center for Human Awakening. Her name is Lorna Bryant, and we'll be speaking to Lorna about her continued divine contributions to the Center for Human Awakening Study Group through Sanctuary with Eden. And I'd now like to invite Lorna to come on screen. Hello, Lorna.
Hello, Robert.
Nice to be with you in this space.
You too.
We're back to invite another opportunity to dive deeper into your daily beautiful sharings and teachings on the Center Study Group, or the Sacred Attention Therapy Study Group, which is the Facebook page. And today I'm going to invite us to look a bit deeper into a recent sharing of yours. It's based around fear. And here's what you had to say. If you fear the unknown, then when she calls to you the magic of the universe, you will not hear her voice or see her beckoning you forth into eternal, mystical delight. And you expand on that and share the following. Don't allow groundless fears and anxious deliberations of the mind to blind you to your divine sacred gift of magic. If you do, you will never be amazed or surprised or even truly realize the magician and divine alchemist within yourself, your I am. Transformation takes transmutation of limited thought and total transcendental transmission of fearless, love-laden energy and intention. Let yourself be tempted and lured by the fathomless reaches of the mysterious, infinite, mystical unknown. One leap of faith to allow magic to take place. That short sharing is laden and imbued with beautiful possibilities for exploration, but all overarching it, fear and anxiousness, and our invitation to let it go.
Fear, it seems to be such a huge part of the world today, and such a heavy burden for people to carry. And a lot of my writings addressed fear and what is fear, where does it come from, right from sort of looking at the need for the sort of primal fear instinct for survival, and that the actual fear that we have naturally to protect us from real threat, right across the board to fears that we and people can't explain why they have. They just are consumed by fear. So that the scope of fear and the levels of fear is enormous. But it just seems to me that people have become more and more fearful. It seems that fear it can wreck people's lives. It can wreck relationships. It can just drain any ounce of joy or happiness out of you. And sometimes we don't know what our fear is about. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we have an inkling. But it seems that it's almost like a dictator, to us, to many people. And we don't just have the fears and feel fear. We then respond. We react to the fear, and through our behaviour and to the way we relate to the world, and to in our relationships and in our workplaces, and we are kind of like looking through this filter that's of fear rather than a sort of a clear filter of sort of a clear glass where there's more, so much more than fear. So I think it's a really essential thing to contemplate and trying to understand and to help other people. Whenever I've had clients in the past, or friends, or people on my Facebook page that ask me for help or guidance, a lot of the problems that they're talking about or struggling with are fear-based, and getting them to helping people to see that, not just see that they're being kind of powered by fear, they're being kind of almost dominated by fear, but to understand what's underneath the fear is a real challenge, and it's I think it must be a challenge for all healers or psychotherapists and any kind of counsellor, to how do you do that in a gentle, loving, compassionate way without actually bringing up more fear for the person? Because sometimes it seems to me that people cling to their fear because it's all they have known. It's become almost a conditioned way of being, and they're not even aware that their actions are coming from a place of fear. So that's a really big challenge if someone isn't even aware that's the driving force, and also the driving force behind their suffering. Most suffering and pain, and even talking about pain on every level, mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual in a way. It seems a lot of it is fear-based. You've had some experience in your life that has triggered the primal reaction to maybe a threat or something earlier in your life, and that has been triggered and then heightened and stays in a heightened state, so that when we face life's challenges and traumas and stresses, rather than being able to balance ourselves and react in a balanced way and from a very centered place, a still place, it's like a knee-jerk reaction. That primal reaction to run, to survive, to hide, or to attack even, surfaces, and it can be a very subconscious thing. So I always try to invite people to look at their fear, and there's a lot of resistance in people to do that. It's a frightening thing to do, isn't it?
It's interesting and intuitive to bring up that last point, because you've talked and you're sharing to this point about this awareness of fear. And I find with any of, to use the broad term, inner work, the first thing is we have to be aware of.
Always, yes.
And
always.
What I find fairly consistently, and I'm speaking also of myself, not just, what I see in others.
Mm.
But we're not aware of what it is we're feeling.
No.
And unless you have a practice, I'll use that word to indicate a dedicated, committed, disciplined time to check in with yourself, if I can use it in that simple way, to say, okay, what am I feeling? What am I seeing? What am I experiencing? And to be able to step back from it and examine it.
Yes, that's
a lot of people don't have that. They haven't developed that practice in their life, and then the fears become something to turn away from instead of come face to face with, to look at, to be able to move through them and transcend them. But the tendency is one of, no, let's avoid that.
Yes, that's right. I wrote 2 posts this morning actually about this and posted them to you. You may not have seen them yet, but I was exactly saying that we tend to we suffer and we feel pain and that's often underlying the pain is often some fear thing going on.
Mm-hmm.
But all we feel is the pain, and then we suffer, and then we can actually lose sight of who we are completely, other than the pain, other than the suffering. It's like layers, and yes, the tendency is, because it's a horrible feeling. Even if you can't pinpoint where it's coming from or why you're feeling what you're feeling. Nevertheless, the result, the anxiety and what it causes you to experience emotionally, mentally, and physically is something that people want to escape from, or bury, or deny, or pretend, or use coping strategies that aren't healthy. Even things like addictions, or anything to distract from the pain, from the fear. And the very thing we need to do is not to do that. Is to, I think one of the posts put up this morning was about pain or fear being a wave in an ocean. So the ocean is your true self, including not just your personal self, your divine self, and the completeness of that, the stillness that is there all the time, that we don't tend to sit with, and then the waves, the turmoil that we suffer mentally and emotionally, our thoughts, which are often fear-based, our emotions, which are often fear-based, are the waves that rise up. And what most people tend to do is either they try to fight back the wave, or they get swamped by the wave, or they get carried away by the wave. And my suggestion was that, let the waves rise, but sit still, be still, learn to be quiet while the wave is rising. Watch it rising. Feel what's in that wave. Feel everything that it holds, but stay still. So don't travel with it. Just watch it, and it always rise out of the ocean, and eventually fall back into the ocean and into the stillness. So if you can, and you're right. Practice is a word, or I mean personally, I haven't shared this yet with you or with people listening, but I I could say that I have I've had an intimate relationship with fear because of things that have happened to me. And I was diagnosed with post-traumatic stress years ago. And I've been through some very, very real, threatening, very real life threatening situations and traumas. And so I can now, years later, I still have PTSD, still have physical illnesses that have come out of that, but I can understand fear and how insidious and how it can take over your life if you don't learn to find that still place, still, the stillness under the ocean. That you see the ocean sometimes is still on top, sometimes it's wavy, sometimes whatever, but in the depths there's that stillness, there's that fullness, and there's the quietness and the beauty. And I just think if we can imagine, if we can, with people, when we're working with people, bring some kind of visualization like that into it to help stand. And also the layering thing. I mean, as a homeopath, when I trained as a homeopath, we'd always talked about peeling off the layers of the onion, peeling them off one by one until you get to the core. And the core in most people's suffering is often fear. It really is. And when you look at that fear even closer, it's a fear of not surviving. It's a fear of being lost. It's a fear of not having identity. It's a fear of dying. It's a fear of losing yourself. But in that fear of losing ourselves, we actually do lose ourselves, which is the irony.
That's right. Exactly.
So it's very easy now for me to talk about it and to understand it, because I've gone through such intensely fearful situations that I feel, if I'm not going to go into what they were because they were horrific, but I don't regret them. In fact, they have been a blessing to me, because they brought me to a really deep understanding of what this fear does, and also to look into the difference between the primal fear, which is a very useful thing to have, the part of the brain that registers threat, very real threat, like a bus is coming, so you're not going to walk out in front of that bus, or a tiger's approaching you in the jungle, and those are very real threats. But if that part of the brain takes over and becomes dominant, we can live in that threat fear state in our entire lives, and it just stops any joy. It stops you taking risks. It stops you being spontaneous. It stops you dreaming. It stops you, just throwing yourself into that ocean of wonderment and magic and into the unknown. Because so many people try, because of fear, they have to have they have to box things up. They have to have rigid life. They have to have everything in place, and that takes away all the spontaneity and the possibility of experiencing the magic that is very real. Magic is very real. It's not something people think about very much, I don't think, and then probably associate it with witches and and cauldrons and bats' tails and frogs' legs and stuff. But actually, magic is all around us. I mean, I think we talked last time about miracles. Well, magic is the same, and if you ever look at pictures of the ocean or videos of the ocean deep, I've been diving, I've dived down and swum amongst. It's a world beyond. It's so magical. It's so full of colour and depth and variety and diversity, and that's who we are. That's who we are as people and who we are as spiritual beings. That's our source. Yet we experience so little of it because we're stuck in this terrible, crippling, disabling fear. It's sad. And if I have one mission in life, it would be to try and help people to let go of their fear, because life is short, relatively short actually, and to be stuck in that prison. There's an ocean out there of wonderment and possibilities is a very sad thing. I find it very sad, and I feel very, very sad when I see people locked in that state.
I've heard it said there's a significant difference between being fearful and being cautious. As you said, when one is fearful, it stops you. It stops you in your tracks. You stop. You will not proceed. But when one is cautious, using the analogy of to cross the street and you don't want to get hit by the bus, well, someone who's fearful will not attempt to cross the street. But someone who's cautious, well, before they take their first step, they'll look both ways, and they'll put one foot in front of the other, and then they'll take another look, and then another step, and perhaps another look, and another step. There's a significant difference between being cautious and being fearful.
There is, but I also think there's a fine line between the two as well. That caution. A lot of people I see living in fear say that, I'm just a pragmatic, cautious person, and actually I just see fear just emanating out of them. So it can be a very the fine line between what people mean by cautious and what people mean, because no one wants to admit that they're frightened. No one wants to admit it, actually. I mean, very few people do. Because if you say I am terrified, it makes you very vulnerable. I think it makes people feel very vulnerable, because we're taught from a very early age to try and be strong, to become something, and to all this, which I think immediately vulnerability is something that is seen as a weakness, whereas I don't feel it is at all. I think it's a wonderful thing to be vulnerable. When you're vulnerable, I don't mean naive, and I don't mean being able to be walked all over. I just mean to be open-hearted, open-minded, to embrace whatever you might miss if you're not. The beautiful things that can come to you, the opportunities that come, you don't see them because you're too closed down. You're in your prison of fear, and the sad way to live, really. It's so sad. And I know that some people are living in terribly fearful situations and in war zones, and dying from famine and drought and disease, and that's a very, very real fear that people have. But what I find extraordinary is when you hear people talk who are going in those kind of situations. Often they're not. It's a hard thing to say, and I don't want to cause. They're not necessarily unhappy or suffering, because the very realness that they're going through, the very real situation that they're going through, actually brings them very present to a place inside themselves. And when sometimes you haven't got all the distractions and all the luxuries that we have in the Western world around us, I think something else happens in people who are going through these tragic experiences. It certainly did with me, with the things I went through. Something rises up from within, and you could say that's the magic bit. Something gives you that extra strength and compassion for your fellow sufferers around you, and people come together and people support each other. And so, we're very easy and quick to say, this is terrible and this shouldn't happen, but who are we to know what really is going on behind this suffering, and what we could actually learn if we spent time with these people, if we I don't think pain is it can be hard. Pain is hard if you resist it. Pain is hard if you live by it. and you let it overwhelm you. But if you embrace it, if you listen to the message under the pain, under the fear, if you get to the fear and then you listen to what the fear is about, that's what it wants. That's why it's causing you pain in the first place. It wants to be set free.
Yeah.
The soul and the spirit, they want to be free within us, and we kind of smother them, not consciously often, but So it's like it can be your best friend, your fear. If you make it your best friend instead of your enemy, you can actually open up to the most immense love and light and wonder, and you can see more than you could ever. I can vouch for this personally. It can be a real, a very powerful cracking open of everything, of all the things you've ever, of all your concepts, of all your perceptions, of all your judgments. It can change, it can completely change you, but you have to be willing. You have to be willing to go down, down, down under all the layers and look that fear straight in the eyes and say, I welcome you. I'll hold your hand while you talk to me, and I'll listen. I won't run away from you, and I won't ostracize you. I know that you're here for me to help me. And this is a change, a different way of looking at it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful space to leave it.
I knew you were going to say that. I felt it actually this time. I actually felt that was, yeah.
Look, Lorna, I'll thank you again so much, and people can follow up with you if they wish on your Facebook page. It's Sanctuary with Eden, and that'll be scrolling in the credits at the end. Thank you so much, Lorna.
So they can connect with me on LinkedIn if they want to.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Lorna.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Robert. I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Take care.